Greetings, brothers and sisters. I got some stuff to cover with Sharon Stone, who a big event happened yesterday in the volunteer state of Tennessee. And Sharon Stone had some thoughts. And Clarissa was there. I'll get into that in just a moment. Joan Hart. And I want to start here with a follow-up to Miley Cyrus. And I want to get to Jon Stewart, who gives an interview with Fareed Zakaria, which needs to be mocked, just because I happen to see it. So anything on the news, CNN, is mockable, and this is particularly mockable. But I had and then I want to get to a comment. I did a comment. I talked about a comment on my other video, on my other channel yesterday. And I had some thoughts, and there was a question somebody asked I want to get to. But first, there was a message I got from YouTube. I talked about my videos getting demonetized, and YouTube sent this out. A bug resulted in yellow icon delays over 48 hours for some uploads from March 8th to 13th. The issue is now resolved. If you see yellow icons that you think are wrong, please request a human review. And what this means is that they've lost control of their AI again, right? You see this on social media quite often. They lose control of their AI. And I had this video, you guys remember, it said something like epic comment video. And I uploaded it, and it was like an hour and a half. And epic comment video, bogus Trump distraction. And they yellowed it, and it took days for them to look it over, and then they confirmed that it wasn't monetizable, which makes me have to work for free. And I figured that there was an ad that was there's a Huffington Post headline I was covering, and there was an ad for some. It was a Spanish-speaking ad. The words were the text was in Spanish, and it went to some sort of like porn thing. And they, bagged me for graphic content. But if you didn't speak Spanish, you'd have no idea that this was an ad. There's nothing graphic about it. And I'm glad YouTube is, getting rid of that kind of content. But this was just a complete overreach. And I don't know why a human person, didn't reverse it. So then I took that out and I re-uploaded the video, and they greened it, making it monetizable. And then after some point during the day, they reversed it, right? And then yesterday I got a notification that video, and I had two videos of Kris Jenner that were shorts. Kris Jenner doing her karate, if you saw that on my other channel. I have all these short videos people don't know about because YouTube only sends out one notification, but I generally make 4 or 5 short videos on. Yesterday I made a long video on my Apocalypse Now channel, and then there'll be 4 short videos on that channel today. And then today I'll make a long video here, and there'll be so many, like whatever short videos I get out of this video I make here, this one. And so it's usually 3 to 5 short videos on either channel. But either way, they finally greened these videos, which means they're willing to run ads on them. They don't run ads on the short. It's some other way they have of revenue sharing. I don't understand it. But in terms of the longer videos, but the bigger point is they keep on losing control of their AI. That's what happens. Their AI does something, and it goes off the rails, and then they have to kind of bring it back in. At some point, they're just not going to be able to reel it back in. So yeah, I just wanted to start off there. Let's get to this Miley Cyrus thing. So one of my viewers sent me this. Somebody else had this similar idea. I compared Miley Cyrus to Darth Vader. Like the title of the video was something, I don't know, was Darth Vader and Miley were in. And I talked about how her voice was like Darth Vader. Somebody else on the internet had a similar idea, so they did this.
Is usually the part that you remember anyways.
My troops are in position to begin searching the swamps for these rumored underwater villages.
Journey.
But this video got 500,000 likes, which means it's got millions of views. Mine got 5,000. Like we both had the same idea. Somehow mine is not as viewer friendly. I said in another video, I think on this channel, that if somebody covered the exact same topics that I covered and just made fart noises instead of the commentary that I give, it would be more popular, right? Like 5, 10, 15 times more popular. So I would be losing to fart noises, right? On the internet. Fareed Zakaria goes one-on-one with Jon J. Stewart.
Hey, Fareed, it's nice to see you.
Fareed J. Zakaria.
I love your aquarium.
Thank you,
Zakaria.
exactly.
Yeah. So I'm sorry, Zakaria.
We can go swimming afterwards.
Yes.
So I got to ask you, it's a big thing in the news. Donald Trump indictment. There are people.
What?
No, just stay with me for a minute.
Yeah, the longer it doesn't happen, the more it's just one of these, things that red herring things they do, where they just prolong they say something's going to happen, or they pretend something's going to happen, and they never give you resolution. They prolong the resolution. It's a borderline personality disorder thing where they never give you, like Trump will never be arrested. Like, no, it's going to happen tomorrow. No, it's just the same thing with the QBs and those sealed, those sealed indictments. It's just they prolong something. They don't allow you to just move on with your life. You just have it hanging over your head, and constant, the Trumpers, and finally the story just kind of disappears.
There are people
I've been
who
watching
say,
the live cameras at the courthourhouse. It's imminent. Breathless speculation.
So there are people who say, yes, you have to indict him because he has in fact broken the laws, and there are other people who say this is going to turn him into a martyr. This is his path to redemption.
Sure.
How do you think about it?
Oh, the law should always take into account someone's popularity. I think that's. I mean,
He's trying to be funny.
what's happened to our country? It's as though you can't even commit financial fraud anymore. You can't inflate the value of your properties.
Jon Stewart's brother was the head of the New York Stock Exchange. When Jon Stewart was at his height, his older brother was head of the New York Stock Exchange, right? So when the Daily Show was, Jon Stewart was the most trusted news person, literally, even though he had a crappy comedy show, and he did a lot of shilling for. He had a lot of New World Order stuff on his show. A lot of, there's a thing I covered called Future Shock with Samantha Bee. They talk about chipping people. It was loaded. It was like all this stuff, transhumanism, all these things. Like he had all that stuff, right? It's part of the club.
When you need a loan and then deflate it with taxes. The next thing you know, they're going to send you to jail instead of your lawyer and your accountant and your campaign manager and everyone else around you. The idea that someone
You're still going with that?
may face accountability who's that rich and powerful is outrageous, and this country shouldn't stand for it.
But what if it turns out to be his get out of jail free pass? It's his path to, people will see him as a martyr.
Okay.
You're okay with that? He could become president again.
So you're thinking that it's worthwhile for them to pursue this Stormy Daniels thing, right? That's Jon Stewart's take.
He could become president anyway. Fareed, we either have the rule of law or we have no rule of law.
We have no rule of law, right? You seriously talking about that? Because, Trump is the last person that you can say has this sort of privilege. He was impeached twice, and the Democrats are keeping him alive, as is CNN, because he's the center of their universe. But we know that there's all these people that are just above the law, like they're players and they're ultra-rich people that, and there's just people in general. The rule of law is disintegrated.
The rule of law does not take into account if that might make you a martyr to somebody. I'd much rather have the conversation be, what is the law? What exactly are we saying that he did? His lawyer went to jail for this same situation for a couple of years. So
He was Fixer.
What is the crime? Is it a crime?
There are people who say it's selective prosecution, that this would not
everything
ordinarily
is selective prosecution. The reason why Donald Trump became popular in the first place, and the reason why these populist movements, is that the citizenry have become fed up with the lack of accountability for those in power. We have no accountability in our...
So you're going to put him in jail, right? The Trump supporters are upset because there is no accountability for whatever it is, right? And they buy into Trump's lies, Trump's deception, because, you know, they're not deep thinkers, right? Trump is, you know, saying what they want to hear, which is what Trump's good at. And he's saying that the answer to that is to put Trump in jail. Like, that's Jon Stewart's solution.
Our financial systems, we have no accountability for the bankers. I mean, our Congress trades stocks with information they get making laws, and they do it to great...
You mean Nancy Pelosi, who was in charge of 2 impeachments of Trump, right?
Success. And they won't stop it because they're the ones in charge of making the law about it. And instead of bringing accountability to the rampant corruption that is surrounds our government and our financial systems, the Supreme Court just changed the definition of corruption. Rather than prosecuting it, rather than holding people accountable, they just went, how about this? Okay, why don't we just say this?
It's even better than that was that they said, you politicians, you think that's corruption because you're engaging in it, but we actually don't think it's corruption. And
we're going to tell you, don't worry about it. You can influence peddle as long...
I mean, he's actually talking about something that's real here.
Long as you don't explicitly say, by the way, this money is so that I may influence this law specifically, and you have to lay out. Like, that is what has the lack of confidence that people have in the system is, and you even see it throughout the media, even that conversation. Should we not? It's but he's popular, and then it might make him more popular, but not less popular. Did he do something wrong? What was it?
Did you do something wrong? Like his brother was, I forget the specifics of it. I covered it, but you can look it up. But his brother, who has, Jon Stewart's changed his name. His last name isn't Stewart. I think that's his middle name. I don't know. But his brother, got a huge payout. Like he was running the New York Stock Exchange at a time when the financial system was falling apart. And Jon Stewart went after that, that D-bag Kramer from CNBC. He had him on the show, and he kind of destroyed the guy. Whatever. I mean, the guy's still going. But he went after the guy savagely. At the same time, his brother had a much more important role in the financial markets, right? Like Jon Stewart is, talking like he's an outsider and he's a voice of the people, when he's like a complete insider shill, right?
Explain that to us. What is the law that he supposedly violated? What are the ramifications of it? I don't see him ever actually going to jail. I personally don't even care.
He ain't going to jail. I'd be shocked. Not because of his supporters and being popular, because the left needs Trump, right?
I just want a system that somehow finds a consistent accountability.
But here's the part I really want to show you. This is to do with the GOP.
They used to, which was, the Democrats were big spenders or whatever, So nowadays, when you watch Republicans campaign against Democrats, they don't campaign much on what they used to, which was, the Democrats were big spenders or whatever, It's all about critical race theory.
Sure.
And it's all this cancel culture stuff.
Yes, the biggest problem.
Why does it work, and what should Democrats do? Are they falling for a bait in doing this?
Falling for a bait.
Talking about these issues.
I don't know if they're falling for a bait, but I think, again, I don't even think half of the Republicans that do it even mean it. I think they think it's
They think
appeal
it
to
works.
emotion.
Right.
What would you do if you were out of governing ideas?
See, that's his insight. This is the guy who's supposed to be a comedian talking truth to power. And his insight is the Republicans are out of governing ideas. They don't have any ideas. And Democrats have a ton of them, right? Like, the Democrats, well, let's get into it here.
If you didn't know how to govern a country of this magnitude and a country of this diversity, and you basically are running on government is broken, and then when you get in office, you have to be terrible to prove the original premise, like, it must be great to be able to do that. This government doesn't work, and by me not funding it and breaking it, see what I told you? Keep me in power.
So this is his take on it, right? Now, I grew up, my parents were Democrats. My grandparents on my mom's side were very, big Democrats. My, grandfather, a union guy, worked for the fire department. And, mostly liberal influences in my life, right? Lived in Connecticut. And, there were some Republicans there, but not, a little bit different. And at that time, the Republicans had the power. Conservatives were more powerful than liberals. They dominated the news media. They dominated everything. And they sucked at it. Like, Republicans have their own suckiness. And it was pretty sucky back then in terms of the country leaning right. And liberalism, like true liberalism, which is kind of important, has done like good things in terms of organic foods, protecting the environment. There are things that the liberals have done in the past that have been a big deal, right? Have helped America out and all of us. But there was a switch that was thrown. And, I have no leaning to the right. Like, I have more issues with Republicans and Republican-leaning truthers here because I have very few lefties, very few normies that come to my channel. And so the people I deal with, the boneheadedness I deal with is right-leaning people, right? And so, for me personally, I have more issues with, in terms of commenters and, whatever I deal with people who are goofy, are extreme right-wing, goofy people that affect me and my job here, that put out disinformation, all the rest of it, right? And I can categorically say that the left is worse, right? Growing up as a left-leaning person and, influenced by that, and having trouble now with right-wing people, who watch my videos or whatever it is, and just, contaminate the truth community, take it in the wrong direction. Even with that, I can say the left is far worse. It's just, anybody can see it. They have the power. They have the social media power. Their agenda's backed by the powers that be more so than the Republican agenda, which used to be backed when the military-industrial complex was more important. But, obviously the liberals have the power now. And what they're doing with it is crazy. It's just crazy. It's just crazy. And Jon Stewart, as a comedian, should know this. Many other comedians hint at it, that the liberals, even Bill Maher, people like that. And Jon Stewart is pretending that the Republicans are out of governing ideas more so than the Democrats. Like, the Democrats' agenda is like crazy, and we all know it. We all know it, right? He's saying that, this idea to fight back against it, and there's no fight because there's no power. There's no power to prevent it from happening because the system needs it to go that way to survive, right? And so this is someone who is supposed to be talking truth to power.
You don't have ideas on governing. What do? Well, you do the purposeful distortion field that they create.
But it works,
and by the way,
right? Because it's emotional.
Does it work?
I don't know.
Who's the president?
Well, but
it doesn't necessarily work.
Well, then why are they doing it, right?
It gets people upset. It gets them angry. It makes them fearful about threats and hyperbole, and makes them afraid of things that can't even really be defined. Meanwhile, ignoring so many issues that, Like,
right, it's a kind of real appeal to a base that you stoke up.
Right.
When Sarah Huckabee Sanders did the response to the State of the Union, I noticed she kept talking about CRT. She didn't even bother to spell it out to
They don't-
because most people, I would assume most average
but Fareed,
Americans
that's
don't know what it
purposeful.
means.
The guy who came up with that's purposeful. He's
Okay, so this is what Jon Stewart is saying. But he used to know better. So this is Jon Stewart's take on Joe Biden being a groper, Vice President Joe Biden in 2015, when they didn't want him to run. It might have been 14, I'm not sure. Around that time, when they didn't want him to run for president, they wanted Hillary Clinton.
On Stephanie Carter's shoulders for an estimated 28 seconds.
Is it the stress of me groping you for 28 straight seconds?
You know, he knew about it, as did David Letterman. They were all talking about it. This is what they knew about Joe Biden, who now is, on top of being a groper and a snoozler and a liar and a plagiarist and a corrupt politician, is now senile, right? Which everybody can see if they, it's obvious, right? And he called it the audacity of grope, right? So he knew that Joe Biden was a groper. And then Trump happened and everybody forgot, right? Including CNN.
After recent travels to the early contest states of Iowa and South Carolina. But Biden's latest gaffes are stealing the spotlight away from speculation about his presidential aspirations.
For their trust.
Like his strange hold on Defense Secretary Ash Carter's wife, Stephanie.
So this is Brianna Keeler, who used to have her own show on CNN, and now I don't know what she's doing. But back then, CNN knew that he was a groper, and they didn't care about saying it, right? Amongst other things like a liar. Also, I want to mention he's a celebrity dropping like flies in my Hollywood Celebrities Dropping Like Flies series. On my other channel, he had a heart attack or stroke or something very recently. Ash Carter did, So there's that.
And this claim about Somali immigrants in his hometown of Wilmington, Delaware.
It's a large, very identifiable Somali community. There's an awful lot who are driving cabs, and are friends of mine, for real. I'm not being solicitous.
Yeah, you are.
Being serious.
And it turns
He's
out
being serious. He's not lying like normal.
factually incorrect. Only 15 Somalis live in the entire state, according to the Census Bureau. And Wilmington cab drivers told CNN they knew of no Somalis driving taxis. And on late night TV, Biden has become a punchline.
Ever heard of a second lady?
The missteps are nothing new. Over the years, Biden's become known for them.
Okay, so this is CNN talking about what a complete dope he was, right?
He's taken criticism for some, like this one, talking to a largely African-American audience about Mitt Romney in 2012.
They're going to put you all back in chains.
But off.
So he's done this, right? They all knew, including Jon Stewart. They all covered this. And then they decided, well, he's better than Trump, or whatever reason they were told to stand down. They allowed this now senile, horrible politician to become president, whatever they've done, right? When it's their job to prevent such things. And Jon Stewart is a complete fraud. Like, for him to come out and, pretend to be someone who's got a comedic take on politics, and you're going to ignore Joe Biden's senility, you're going to ignore Joe Biden's son, Hunter, all of these things, right? But not to be outdone, let's go to Sharon J. Stone.
Any person, certainly any parent watching that, must feel the same desperation and horror that I feel.
When I look into the mirror and stare into my cold, dead eyes, right?
Being an American, one of the few countries that still has not banned assault weapons to the general public. These crimes are senseless. And they come from, I'm so sorry to say, an ego-driven, arrogant part of ourselves.
You mean Republicans, right? It says there, protect our children, America. That's what her comment is about this thing. But she says this like she's talking about all of us, and she's just talking about the people that she disagrees with, the Trump supporters and the Republicans. And, when someone's saying ego, when they come from Hollywood, the biggest ego place in the universe, Hollywood generates more ego than, you could use the ego that's generated in Hollywood to power a town or a country, right? Like, you could convert it into energy.
We have to do better. We have to be better.
By that, she means you have to do better. They have to do better. Right? She's not talking about we. There's no we in this narcissistic Hollywood ghoulish rant.
How many children have died this year? Yes, it's from mental illness. And yes, it's from the illness of our own egos. Come on.
Come on, right? How many children have died from the you-know-what and have had heart attacks, Sharon? Or died from your Hollywood sponsored morality that is infecting the minds and hearts of the youth? I mean, can you get over the arrogance of this school?
Be bigger than you are, and be smaller than you think you are.
You mean the Ant-Man? Like, be bigger than you are and be smaller than you think you are. And geez, I don't know what I'm saying here. I'm just going to end it here. Okay, so I have a negative association with Melissa Joan Hart, which I'm sure many people do. When I worked in my first treatment center, I have a master's degree in counseling. I work with kids who are young sex offenders, basically, in a treatment center, a lockdown facility. And it was during the time, these were 10 to 14-year-old boys, the first place I worked in. And during that time, Saved by the Bell and Clarissa Knows It All, or whatever it is, and you can see she clearly doesn't, right? This, what she's about to say here. Apparently she just happened to be in Nashville yesterday and when a big event happened. And so, the show was on and the kids loved it. And it was hard to watch. Like, it was just really annoying show. Even worse than Saved by the Bell. And so that's what I know about Melissa Joan Hart. But now I know something else. She's a New World Order shill, right?
Hey guys, for those of you that know, I live in Nashville, and what's been going on here today, my kids go to school right next to a school where there was a shooting today, and we moved here from Connecticut.
I grew up in Connecticut, and that makes total sense, right? Melissa Joan Hart screams Connecticut.
Where we were in a school a little ways down from Sandy Hook, so this is our second experience with a school shooting with our...
So the moral of the story is if Clarissa moves into your neighborhood, it's time to leave, right?
Kids being in close proximity. Luckily, we are all okay, but my husband and I were on our way to school for conferences, and luckily our kids weren't in today, and we helped a class of kindergartners across a busy highway.
That's just so courageous and wonderful of you. You saw a wild flock of kindergartners next to a highway, and you helped them across it. What a wonderful person. Not only is she a great actress in Hollywood, but also a kindergartner herder.
They were climbing out of the woods. They were trying to escape the shooter situation at their school. So we helped all these tiny little kids cross the road and get their teachers over there, and we helped a mom reunite with her children. And I don't know what to say anymore. It is just enough is enough. And just pray for the families.
Okay, Clarissa will do that. Thanks, Clarissa. Everyone pray for the families because Clarissa knows it all, except when she doesn't. So just briefly here, I made a video yesterday, and there was a comment that somebody left on Facebook, and not here on my other channel. And I forgot one thing. I was talking, the person accused me of not having humiliation or being humble and being arrogant, right? Which I'm not disputing that, right? I was talking about how you have to have a sort of an edge to be on the internet, and you have to have tough skin. You have to be, and there's got to be something that, like, I enjoy it. Like, I enjoy some of the, like, conflict or whatever this is with the comments. I enjoy making the comment videos, and the very thing that I do here, and anybody who puts out content, especially if they're giving their opinion, you go somewhere and you're voicing your opinion on what you think's going on, and you think people want to listen to it. There's a certain narcissism or arrogance in that, right? Like, there's certainly arrogance in that. Like, I sit here talking into a microphone with the idea that people are interested in what I'm saying here. I mean, it's, that is whatever it is. It's self-explanatory. I've made this journey series where I'm talking about my experiences, and I made an 8-hour video. I've made hundreds of hours, and, to put it out on the internet is arrogant. Like, that somebody would find it interesting, and I can feel the energy in it when I'm listening to my playback. I can feel the energy, and I can see where people benefit from it, and people say they benefit from it. But, the pursuit or doing this, you have to, have some sort of confidence or belief in the value of your words, right? There's a comedian I watched, and he was talking about, it's my thoughts, right? When he was doing his, like, he's standing up there on the stage and everyone's listening to his thoughts, right? There's something, inherently, or even writing a book or doing these things where you think your words are worth and have value. And there's a market for it. And the market, people either find it has value or it doesn't. And so I think I have humility in me, like it's part of my, whatever it is. But I also have arrogance, like, there's some of that there or whatever. Selfishness is certainly there. And I've never claimed to be humble, right? This person's, in their comment was saying, I lack humility. But that would only be if I told everyone I'm humble. Like, you understand this? Like, this is how brain dead everybody is. And just emotionally and, spiritually deprived. They can't perceive reality around them. Because I'm not claiming any of these things. And the other part the person was saying is that I say I talk to God, which isn't the case. I don't say that. I recognize that God comes through me. And somebody asked a legitimate comment. That's why I'm adding this to here, because I think it's worth talking about. And the person said, well, that's not it here. Okay, let me see if I can find the comments over here. I have a few of them here. The person says, how do you know you are connecting to God? That's a huge claim. Well, it's not a claim. It's something that I say, and it's not something that's provable, and I'm not claiming it, right? Again, this isn't a hostile comment, but the person's misunderstanding. I'm not claiming that I'm giving you the word of God, that I'm some sort of whatever, preacher, saint, psychic, medium, and that God is coming through me exclusively. What I say is God is in all of us, and we can all connect to God. And I've experienced this in ways that I can't prove to you. And, I've opened myself up to be a conduit for God, whether I'm aware of it or not. Whether God, through the Sagemark system of transmission, transmits through me when I make these videos. I don't consciously have any part in it. But I'm willing to be an instrument for that. Like, I'm completely open to that. I've offered myself in this sense to allow God to come through me. And there might be things that I say, I give that example of the movie, The Grand Canyon, where this woman, the actress, McDonald, whatever her name was, she was in Dances with Wolves, Don't Tell Me, Don't Care, Don't Tell Me, Don't Need to Know. And she is an older woman who finds a baby. She gets somehow she has this baby given to her for some reason. And she's debating whether she should keep it or not because she's older and they have money, but she's in her 50s or whatever it is. And she's jogging in the park, and there's some crazy homeless guy is, threatening and talking. He's having a conversation with himself. And at one point he says, keep the baby, as he walks by her in this stream of consciousness of some delusional, crazy homeless person. And, you know, he was used without consciously knowing it to send a message to this woman. Like, she turns around shocked and looks at him and, you know, did I just experience that, right? And so when you open yourself up to be a conduit for God, which is what the Sagemark system is, then God's going to come through you in one way or another, especially if you work on your own purity as an instrument, as a vessel. The purer you are and the less that you have inside of you that can block that flow or connection is there. But I don't say like I'm the only one, right? Because I know people in the Sagemark system who are better at that, and people who are just spiritual and holy or whatever it is. I mean, I don't, you know, I'm not, there's no sense in me like I'm special or this is the only place you can get it or whatever. I mean, in terms of the Sagemark stuff, it's, you know, it's the only channel that I'm the only person doing this. And that is what it is. But in terms of my connecting to God, there was a period of time when I was a young kid that I thought about God a lot, and my mom went to prayer meetings and I went there. And then when I turned 14, I had I fell off a zip line and I, you know, which is part of the story. It's not the only part. And I went to what was called the Rahu period in the Vedic astrology, where Rahu is a dark planet. Started using drugs, drinking, and I forgot about God altogether. Like, I wasn't against God. I didn't think about God at all until I was in my late 20s. And then I turned 28, you know, my Saturn returned and my Rahu period ended. And through, you know, a couple of years of starting to think about God again, I found Sagemark meditation with the transmission and cleaning. And the experience of the transmission and cleaning and, you know, how it helped develop my heart into an instrument to connect to God is what the Sagemark system does. And how, you know, I've experienced God and divinity through that process. It's, you know, it's very clear. You know, I know what I'm like without God. You know, like there are times now I don't think about God, or, you know, I have an attitude or whatever it is, and not so much anymore as I've gotten older. And there are times when I do, and when I include God into decision making, when I open up to God, when I, you know, this is the same for anybody. There's a perceivable difference. It's subtle because God is subtle, but it's perceivable. It's not, you know, something that it doesn't, you know, have any way of showing itself to you. It's there, right? You can feel it and it's there. It's easy to feel, especially if you develop your heart and there's, you know, some cleaning that happens and, you know, you have sensitivity to it. But you can see the difference when you interact with God and you reach out to God. It's just a matter of choice and intention and working at it and gratitude. And when you do that, you'll see a difference. Like if anybody does it, unless you're like, you know, have like a stone heart, like a really heavy, severe spiritual grossness, and then you have to work at it even harder, right? But anybody can do it. It's there. God's inside of you. And it's not for me to, you know, I can't prove it to you. You have to prove it to yourself. It's an experience, not something that's scientific or mental. It's something you have to experience and feel. You feel God. You don't know God. You feel God. And so, you know, for those of you who know what I'm talking about, you know. For those of you who don't, you don't, right? And so, you know, you have to seek the experience, and then, you know, you can go about it like, okay, God, prove to me that you exist, but then be open to the proof. Ask God the question, ask God to show you, you know, some way, whatever. I don't want to say a sign because that's kind of goofy, but, you know, ask God to give you some, you know, way that you can understand, like to come down to your level and show you what you need to see or feel, experience, so that you know, can feel confident that there is a God, or you know, you can experience God in some level. Anyways, only spirituality will save this world. It's Paul Romano, definitely reporting from the Apocalypse and the Ascension. Everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.